Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Play Saga Red Dead, where we play Red Dead Redemption 2 and tell cowboy stories. And this week we are telling the tale of Buffalo Bill Cody. So, this is the man who started the Wild West show, but he was way more than a performer. There were some things I did not know about Cody that I learned about Buffalo Bill whenever I was doing research on him. I knew that he was a military man, but I didn't know all of this, and I'm very impressed with some of it. So we'll just get right on into it. So Bill Cody was a military man. Let's talk about his military. Well, first let's talk about the Civil War. Now, he tried to join the Civil War, and he was turned away numerous times. He was 13 years old while he was trying to join up to fight the Civil War for the North. And he was turned away many times. When he got a little bit older, he was able to join the army, and he worked as a scout, and he worked as a scout for the cavalry, and he fought against the Native Americans, and he worked for the Kansas Pacific Railroad. But we'll get into that a little bit later. Let's talk about his military career. In 1866, he went over to Junction City, Kansas, where he reunited with an old friend, Wild Bill Hickok. Okay. Now, Wild Bill was serving as a scout for the military then as well. Now, Cody enlisted as a scout himself at Fort Ellsworth, and scouted between there and Fort Fletcher, later named and moved to Fort Hayes. Now, he was attached as a scout variously to Captain George Augustus Arms and Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. So he scouted with Custer, and this is possibly where he may have met Calamity Jane, because both of them scouted for Custer. So it is possible that that's where they met. He may have just heard her stories and went to find her to join the Wild West show. I'm not entirely sure, but it is interesting that they both scouted for Custer, and then she ended up in the Wild West show. I never found one way or the other whether they met while in the military or not.
There, partner. Come take a look at this. Look at this, my friend. Tobacco.
Now, what I can tell you is that he did a lot of scouting. He saved a lot of people's lives during his career, and he was awarded the Medal of Honor for his service, which is impressive to me for a scout to earn the Medal of Honor. He went above and beyond the call of duty for his vocation, which is very impressive. So he was a very good soldier. He wasn't just a soldier, he was a very good soldier. Now, let's talk about where he got the nickname of Buffalo Bill. So Cody received the nickname Buffalo Bill after the American Civil War, when he had a contract to supply Kansas Pacific Railroad workers with buffalo. Now, they were buffalo meat, rather, the American bison. They were working the railroad. They needed food, and preservation of food was not the same as it is now. You couldn't just carry tons and tons and tons of food with you, and if you did, it was all hardtack and dry and stuff like that. So if they wanted fresh food, they had to hunt it, kill it, eat it before it went unfresh, before it rotted. So he was hired, and they hired many buffalo hunters for the railroad to hunt buffalo and supply the men with food so they could continue working. And he worked for the railroad for 18 months. And in those 18 months, it is said that he killed 4,282 buffalo in 1867 through 1868. Cody and another hunter, Bill Comstock, competed for this. And he was dubbed Buffalo Bill because of how many buffalo he brought in. And Bill Comstock brought in a lot as well. Now, they had an 8-hour buffalo shooting match to gain exclusive rights over use of the nickname. As Bill Comstock, his name was Bill. But they decided to have a shooting match to kill buffalo to see who got to use the nickname exclusively. And Buffalo Bill Cody killed 68 animals in 8 hours, and Bill Comstock killed 48. And Buffalo Bill won the title of Buffalo Bill.
You borrow from a German man?
So now let's talk about the Wild West show. In December 1872, Cody traveled to Chicago to make his stage debut with his friend Texas Jack
From Leopold Strauss.
in The Scouts of the Prairie. It was an original Wild West show, but it was a play. It was a two-man play, and it was produced by Ned Buntline.
We've all had bad winter power.
The effort was panned by critics. One critic compared Cody's act to a different schoolboy, which was another play. But basically, the critics did not like it. But Bill Cody was a hit with the common folk, with the crowds. Man, they sold out plays, and he continued on doing plays like this until later on. He finally decided to take this show on the road, make a big production of it in an arena, and he opened up the Wild West show. There was even, back before the Wild West show, there was talk, or there was a play that he did. Now, I believe it was actually called The Scouts of the Plains, where him, Texas Jack, and he was able to talk Wild Bill Hickok into coming on to the show with him. But Bill Hickok had stage fright real bad. Like, he didn't want to be there. He didn't like being seen. And it was said that, you could usually see Wild Bill basically like hiding behind the scenery and stuff. And he was eventually fired from the show when a spotlight focused on him, and he shot it out. So, it's amazing that a man like Wild Bill Hickok had stage fright. That was so funny for me to find out, especially because, like I said, Wild Bill Hickok is my absolute favorite gunslinger, and it is amazing to me that a man as deadly and as powerful as he was, that commanded such power, had stage fright. That is so funny to me. I love it. In either case, Buffalo Bill Cody, he opened up the Wild West show, and he took his show on the road.
Not good yet.
Now, he had many headline performers, Setting Bull, Calamity Jane, which we talked about already. And most of these people were as well known as Buffalo Bill, or better known than Buffalo Bill. Annie Oakley and her husband Frank Butler, they were sharpshooters. He had Gabriel Dumont and Lelena Smith. They would react stuff from the Pony Express. During the show, there were reenactments of the Pony Express, Indian attacks on wagons, and stagecoach robberies. The show was said to end with a reenactment of Custer's Last Stand, in which Cody portrayed General Custer, and I've read that was a rumor, that didn't happen, and blah blah and all that. But at the same time, I've seen pictures of Wild West shows that had Custer's Last Stand listed on it. So I feel like maybe the show wasn't the same every time, everywhere they went. Maybe they changed it up a little bit, because you can only sell tickets to the same show so many times. So maybe they changed it up from time to time, and when they toured around, it was a different show. That being said, they toured all over America. They even went over to England, and they toured over England. And the Wild West show was very, very popular in England. It was very popular here in the United States. And Buffalo Bill Cody amassed a pretty great fortune doing the Wild West show. Well, as we talked about last week, you know, he was able to pay Sitting Bull to ride around the arena a single time a night, $50 a week. And that was a lot of money. That was an unheard amount of money to be making. So for him to be able to pay a man to ride around the arena one time a night, that much money, they had to be raking in the cash, man, raking it in. Now, Cody died on January 10th in 1917. Let that sink in for a minute. 1917, man. Now, upon the news of Cody's death, tributes were made by King George. And like, you know, and President Woodrow Wilson, his funeral service was held at the Elks Lodge Hall in Denver. The governor of Wyoming, John B. Kendrick, a friend of Cody's, led the funeral procession to the cemetery. And at the time of his death, Cody's once great fortune had dwindled to less than $100,000. And that, you know, that was approximately, well, that was a little bit over $2 million. In money today. He left his burial arrangements with his wife. She said that he had always said he wanted to be buried on Lookout Mountain, which was corroborated by his daughter Irma and Cody's sister and family, friends. But other family members joined people in saying that Cody said that he should be buried in the town that he founded in Cody, Wyoming, which I've been to, by the way. Now, on June 3rd in 1917, June 3rd, he died on January 10th, and it took June 3rd, this fight, for them to finally get him buried. They fought amongst people. Cody was buried at Lookout Mountain in Golden, Colorado, west of Denver, on the edge of the Rocky Mountains, overlooking the Great Plains. His burial site was selected by his sister, Mary Decker. Now, this is another one that I have never got to see, but you know, a lot of respect for this man. I mean, he was a Medal of Honor recipient, and he, you know, in a time where there was a lot of prejudice against Native Americans, you know, he had men like Sitting Bull, and was paying him an ungodly amount of money just to ride around the arena one time. So like, and he employed a lot of Native American actors, and you know, like, he was an interesting man. And to be fair, I think there's a lot of misconception about the quote unquote cowboys and Indians from back in the day, that, oh man, everybody hated the Native Americans and blah 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 and all this. I think there was a war going on, and that's why people hated each other. And when the war was over, I think all of these men gained a decent respect for each other, as soldiers usually do. It is possible to have an enemy and respect your enemy.
Didn't even speak English.
Good, very
And
good.
so it was
My
interesting to see that
Well,
later
it's
on,
pleasure you're after. There is one
the-
other. This farmer preacher
Bill
fellow
Cody,
I met in
he obviously
Valentine,
commanded
Mr.
enough
Dowell.
respect
See a
to be able
opinionated
to
little
get
do-gooder? Yeah, I
Sitting
know
Bull
one.
to even
I
come with
certainly
him
know
in the first
type.
place.
Thank you, Herr Morgan.
There's no need to thank me.
So
Like you said,
it does speak to his
pleasure I'm
character
after.
at least
He's
a little
more
bit. I've
slippery
heard
than
that he was a
seems.
bit of a
I've tried
cad, that he
being
was
polite. Don't
he
take
was
any nonsense.
I've heard all these bad things about him, and you see that in history later on, man. People will just start talking shit about these great people from history, but like, if you look at the life around him, it kind of lets you know what type of person he was, because of the type of people who chose to surround him. So I tend to try to look at every piece of history and not just listen to these people tell these bad stories about people and this didn't even happen and all that. It's like, well, you know what? Enough people said it did. I kind of feel like maybe it did. So
Okay, leave it with me.
in either case, I hope you enjoyed a little 3-part series about people from the Wild West show. I plan to do more Native Americans. I plan to do more African American cowboys and gunslingers and horse riders and all of that stuff. I plan to do more women. I'd love to tell some stories about Annie Oakley and some of the others. Man, they were some amazing people.
Thanks, Mr. Pierce.
And of course, I plan to do more of the white gunslingers too. A lot of them were very famous. I'd like to do some more talk about the Texas Rangers. But we are going to tell so many amazing stories of the Old West here, and these are all the stories that I grew up with. These were the people I idolized when I was a kid. This is what I wanted to be when I grew up. Man, like this is probably one of the most fun times I've had, is just recounting these stories, telling these stories, and doing this research to make sure I get my dates right and stuff, and finding small little facts that I didn't know or that I never heard when I was growing up. This is just a lot of fun, and I hope you all are enjoying it. Like, comment, subscribe, tell me what you like, what you don't like, and I will see you all next week. I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to be talking about yet, but I'll be back and we will tell some more stories. So I hope you all enjoyed this series. Thank you very much for watching.
Well, if they massacre people, then they deserve to be cursed. Of course. What was it? Was it just bad luck or bad weather or something else? Something about an eagle or an owl. A grave site. I didn't really get it. I think it sounds very interesting.
Listen, John. You and me is one thing, but will you at least try to make an effort with the boy?
If it'll shut you up, I'll try. But fathering ain't nothing I know about.
Here's a hint. Act like you ain't a selfish, bloodthirsty moron.
Good
You mean
morning,
lie?
Arthur.
Shut up.